back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto.
Good morning again, John.
We've had a wonderful, wonderful segment. We'll chat a little bit about it later on, but right now I want to get to Viviana Russell, and it's a long introduction for Viviana, so we don't have that much time. I want to get right to the chase because she did a wonderful interview in reference to Black History Month, which we're going to talk about. But Viviana is a North Hempstead councilwoman, and I am very honored to say that Viviana is our candidate and will be our next town clerk, which that in and of itself, she's not on the radio for that. I'm saying that, not a political show, but the convention was last week. Viviana was unanimously approved. It's a wonderful opportunity, not only for Viviana, but for the town, for women, for everybody. So I'm not into this man and woman thing. We're all people, we're all here together. But nevertheless, it's just my honor to introduce our next town clerk, our current councilwoman, but bottom line, a friend. That's it. We'll just go with my friend, Viviana. Good morning, Viviana. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on this morning. It is my pleasure and, of course, my honor. And thank you so much for that shout out.
Well, you know what? It's the first shout out you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting many of them. You're going to be a busy lady, but it'll all be good.
This is my first public shout out, so thank you.
Oh, it's the first public shout out. Good for you.
Yes.
I'm being obnoxious. There's nobody to shout out better than me, so we're good. So anyway, I saw your interview, and I just want to, I wanted to have you on today to talk about Black History Month, the importance of this, and and not only are you a political figure in the town of North Hempstead, you're a mother and a grandmother, and so therefore every day you have to instill a certain thing in your children. We all do. Yes. And that's really where I want to come from. The more we know, the more we learn, the better we are together. And Otto and I talk about this all the time. But I'm not stealing your thunder.
That's okay. Quite all right. Quite all right.
Tell me the importance of Black History Month to you.
So for me, Black history, it falls much outside of just the month of February. And so Black history is my history. It's the history of this country. It's the history of so many people. And oftentimes it's relegated to just the month of February. And I'm looking forward to a point where we're just celebrating just history in general, where the lives and the contributions of Black people are incorporated into that history in a true and factual way. And so for me, it means celebrating my culture. It means celebrating my ancestry, the legacies of the people that have come before me, recognizing and acknowledging, the greatness that lies within. It's just a part of who I am. It's a part of, my everyday life. The Black history is every day for me. I can tell you that, my family history here in America has been great. My aunt, and I love to talk about my aunt. She's one of my favorites because all of my aunts, I love them dearly. But my aunt, Maria Parada, Aunt Beba is what we called her, was a civil rights activist. She was really, really phenomenal. She did a lot of work up in the Harlem area, along with Malcolm X and, Alton Maddox and Al Sharpton and, some of those that are still around and those that have come before. She was raised as a Seventh-day Adventist, later converted to being a Muslim, Nation of Islam. She taught herself Hebrew and Arabic. And before she died, she was teaching herself Chinese, and Spanish is native language. Our family is from Cuba. She was originally born in Antigua, and then my family, my grandmother and family migrated to Cuba, where the rest of my aunts and uncles were born. And I still have a lot of family in Cuba now. And so, the history is just so great from Antigua to Cuba and a little bit to the Dominican Republic and Santo Domingo and in here to the United States. And so it's just so vast and so great. And my aunt, we were very, very close. And, just a lot of things that she instilled in me. And then I recently lost another aunt of mine a couple of weeks ago. And it was devastating because her and I were very, very close. But, these were like women in my lives, Black women that were in my life that was so instrumental in being tenacious and, not being the quiet woman in the room. And so as we're in Black History Month and we're embarking on Women's History Month, I just wanted to pay homage to them and just mention them. So my Aunt B, Aunt Beatriz, as we call her, my Aunt Beba, they created a legacy inside of me as a Black woman, as well as my mom. It's just overwhelming at times, and I don't want to start crying here, but Black history to me just means so much because there's so much greatness that lies within us all, and to be able to celebrate that, on the heels of what we are dealing with here in America right now, the social injustice, the pandemic, and how, the Black family and Black communities have been devastated in alarming numbers that far outweigh any other culture or class of people. There's a lot to celebrate and there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And it was a mouthful, but.
No, I'm listening to every word you're saying. And from a family perspective, you got a great family there. But the thing that really hit me is, I'm sure some people think this is so good to have a Black History Month, but you're right. Because to have a Black History Month meant we weren't paying attention. It shouldn't be a month. It should be every day. And there shouldn't be Black History Month anymore because we needed to recognize, and if you were recognized, we wouldn't need it. And so it's very conflictual. Obviously you know him very well, Robert Troiano. And I remember like 2 years ago, I had a conversation with Robert a couple of years ago. I was 15 years old the first time I met a Black person. I was 15. Wow. And it was in high school. And I was a sophomore in high school, and this boy transferred in. And on top of it being the first time I met a Black person, and I give him, at the time he didn't pay attention. He was a nice guy and everything else. Looking back, he was the only Black person in the school. I was like, wow. There was no prejudice. Honestly, everybody got along with the guy. There was no, I suppose, because we were simple. He was a nice guy. I was a nice guy, and that was the end of it. When I look back, and I remember telling Robert the story, I said, the pain that poor kid, feeling outcast. And maybe he didn't, I have no idea, but it's a terrible place where we are in general, that, the injustice, and yet it's still a constant fight for your rights. And I mean that sincerely. I think you're a wonderful woman, but that's not the point. It's a constant fight with something happens to you, and Kristina's on the show with us, and, she's going to get attention first, which is terrible. I don't know.
Yeah. First of all, Vivian, you don't know me, I don't think. I'm a volunteer with Project Independence. And we were on a show together, April the 5th, 2019, with you, Judy, Bernice Sims, Allen Ginsberg, talking about the civil rights documentary. And to me, that was one of the best shows. I've been involved now about 9 years with this, and that was one of the best shows. And to me, what was great about it, and even what we're doing right now, is I believe open dialogue is required to help break this thing down. I'm a little bit different than John in my background, in that I was exposed very early. I went to high school with Franklin K. Lane High School on the borderline of Brooklyn and Queens. We had a large number of Black people in the 50s. And I never, it was even not in my head that there was an issue. I never heard anything at home. And to me, it was like, so we had Black people in the class. And then I was in the Navy, and the fact that I was from New York in the 50s in Florida and Cuba, I learned that a lot of people didn't think like me. I'm down in Jacksonville, Florida, all of a sudden, a native New Yorker, And these things never were on my thinking. And all of a sudden I hear people talking stupid down there who were in the Navy and, coming from the South at that particular time. So it's so much of it is how you get brainwashed as a kid, if you will. And I think we hopefully can work on, I don't think it'll ever be perfect because people are people, and
people are not perfect. Right?
Yeah. And, people always seem to have, some people have a need to make themselves feel stronger by pushing somebody else down.
Yeah.
And I believe that's part of the equation. So they look for any excuse, and it's complicated.
It is. But you're absolutely right. Having these dialogues is what's going to help break down the barriers and, create and foster better relationships. Because that's what it's really about, having relationships and finding the commonalities as opposed to looking at the differences. We all have a lot of things in common, so much more than we have that are apart. So what if our color of our skin is a little bit different, but our blood is still the same color? We all bleed red, as blood hits the air, it's red. So it doesn't matter what color the skin is on the outside. And so people can look beyond just the color of your skin and look at the person, who they are, the characters of the person and the integrity and the morals of the person that they're dealing with. Then that's what makes a difference. It shouldn't matter. Like when you see me, you see a Black woman first before I even open my mouth. And so sometimes there's judgments that are made just because of the color of my skin. I get all the time, and my husband, we kind of laugh about it all the time because people would say to him like, oh my God, like your wife, she speaks so well. And he was very offended by it. And so he said to me, if this person says that to me one more time, I'm going to lose it. He's like, and so people say things subconsciously and don't realize how offensive they are. Like, why would you point out, would you say that about someone else? Like, as if you came in with the notion or with the expectation of something different. And so, sometimes it's just the little things. It may not be something on a grand scale, but the little things, and we all do, we all have our own biases in certain ways. But those kind of little things are the little things that people don't even realize how offensive they are. And so having these conversations is very helpful.
I agree with you. It's the little things that people don't pay attention to that can really cut you right into your heart, and you walk away saying, what just happened there? We're talking with Viviana Russell, and I'm going to go right back to, I just want to say one thing. And Viviana was talking about, we all bleed red, and the color of the skin shouldn't, but it definitely does put something into somebody's mind immediately. I have a very dear friend who's Jewish, and she's 83, 84. And when she was a teenager, her father took her up to Harlem, and he stood around the corner and he said, look around. And the only difference between us and them, meaning the Black people around, is the color of their skin. You'll get away because people won't know you're Jewish, but these poor people will always be abused. And when you said it, it's so true. You could be the greatest person in the world, somebody coming at you, that person's Black, and the white guy could be coming and a filthy animal, but that's not the point, depending on the environment. But anyway, I just wanted to share that because I think it was so true, and she tells the story all the time of the injustice. But Otto, you had something, and you and Viviana were going to talk about baseball.
Well, actually, Viviana brought out the fact that her uncle played.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll start
in the
with
Negro League. And so I actually found the article. So my uncle, Albert Jeffcoat, my family, on my mother's side was born and raised in Batesburg, Leesville, South Carolina. And my uncle, Albert Jeffcoat, he played for the Negro Leagues from 1952 to 1956. He actually was a member of the Indianapolis Clowns.
Oh yeah, I know that team.
And, yes. And they were considered somewhat like the New York Black Yankees. And so he was a part of two Negro American League championships with the Clowns in 1952 and 1954 as a pitcher. And he also was a teammate of Hank Aaron for a short while in 1952 with Indianapolis. And he also was a teammate with the first female professional baseball player, Tony Stone, in 1953. And so when I say that the history of my family is great and the legacies that we have to look back on is great. My uncle's still living. He lives still in the same community in Batesburg, Leesville, South Carolina. And, you know, he was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. And so it's just really great history.
I'm going to show you a photograph that I have on my wall in my office. All right. I don't know if you can see this very well,
Yes.
but in the corner up here is me, and that's Jackie Robinson. And this is Jackie Robinson at bat in Ebbets Field. I don't know if you can see
Okay, we
it.
can see that. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
me up here. That's Jackie. I sat next to
Jackie.
Jackie Robinson at actually I have his autograph here as well. It was a dinner that was held, and I was a Toastmaster in 1952. And it was thinking back that 1952, this event has become more and more important to me as I got older. 1952, try to imagine, I used to go to Ebbets Field to watch the Dodgers play. I was a big Brooklyn Dodger fan. And Jackie Robinson started with the Dodgers in 1948. That was the first year, and he was the first player who was black who could get into the major leagues. And back then, I would go to Ebbets Field. You could go to Ebbets Field. I'm 12 years old. I used to go to Ebbets Field with other kids, no parents. You know, it was a different world. And we would go to Ebbets Field and see Jackie, and he was like God as far as we were concerned, because we were big Brooklyn Dodger fans. And keep in mind that there was no television back in those days. And the only thing we ever saw about Jackie would be we would listen to games on the radio or we would read in the newspaper. So when this event occurred, and I wound up sitting next to Jackie Robinson for a whole dinner
Wow.
as a teenager, it was like, oh man, you know, this is something that, and to this day I look back on it, and it has really become even more, because every year there's a, you know, Jackie Robinson Day, and baseball makes a big thing out of it. And I make sure my grandchildren see these pictures naturally. And it was just a great event. Now, the bad thing about it is I was so overwhelmed with the whole thing. I do not remember anything we talked about. I sat next to him for the whole dinner as a teenager, and I didn't have the experience I have today at my age. So I don't recall, except that he was very nice. And if you look at it, this was a local church in Woodhaven, St. Luke's Lutheran Church, all right? And here we are, we get Jackie Robinson to come to church and sit up there in front of a bunch of people, I'm sure with no charge. And you look at it today, it would have cost probably $1 million to get him to come to the dinner. So it was such a different world, but it was an event that, you know, Jackie was a tremendous influence to me, even though I say even though, but he was black. And I just thought it was the greatest. He was a great athlete. He was a great human being. He did a lot to try to break the barrier. But anyhow, that's, you know,
That's
my
a great
2 cents
story.
worth.
You know, the thing is with a story like that, I really, I'm not going to say I'm stupid, but I didn't really know the Jackie Robinson story. I saw the movie.
It's on tonight, by the way, at 9 o'clock.
I was actually taken back
Yeah.
with what that guy had to go through. I mean, I knew it was a struggle. I'm not questioning it, but I had no idea the degree to the abuse that poor man, but they wanted him at the same time, which is terrible. But I'm sorry, so I digress. Let's go back to Viviana.
Yeah. So, whatever questions you have for me, you know, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about, actually, what I would like to touch upon is your kids. Okay. No, seriously, point of view of, you know, as generations keep going down, and things have definitely gotten much better. Okay. My generation versus the generation before me, and et cetera, et cetera. How do your kids talk about Black History Month? Do they look at it as just like no big deal, mommy, or it's like, mommy, this is very important, or, you know what I'm trying to say?
So my kids vary in age from 30 to 17.
Okay.
They have different outlooks. My 30-year-old, I would say, he's proud of Black history. I think we're kind of in alignment with the feel that it shouldn't just be 1 month. Like, we celebrate Black history every month, and um, you know, every day is Black History Day. And so he doesn't get too into celebrating the month alone. It's every day. My daughter and my youngest son, Malachi, I would say, well, they're a little bit different in their thinking as well. My daughter, I think it's more important for her now to teach her kids, because she has children, my grandchildren, twins, to teach her children about history as opposed to just Black history, so that in any history that they're learning. So they're in daycare, and President's Day was recently passed, and so they brought home like pictures of like Abraham Lincoln and little doodads that they created in school. And they're not even 3 yet. They're 2.5. They'll be 3 in April. But just having a conversation with them about who Abraham Lincoln was is just, the conversation is different as opposed to just talking about Abraham Lincoln as it's taught in school, and Abraham Lincoln as it relates to the real history in America. So it's different for her now because she has children of her own. My son Malachi, he's still in high school. Of course, they do Black history celebrations. And one thing that I love about the school that he's in, and his own thinking, is that he brings to the table facts about Black history outside of the month of February. And it's something that's just talked about, in general. It's not relegated to the month of February or to just a class. So, they're all different. So much different than when I was growing up. Black history was just the month, and you celebrated Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Those were the 3 big names that around Black history, and that was it. If it wasn't for the other people in my life, and really I wasn't introduced to more of my own culture and Black history until I was a little bit older. And I remember when my son was very young, he was in maybe 3rd, 4th grade, maybe 3rd or 4th grade. He came home from school. They were talking about Black history. So we had a book that was called, and I believe the name was What They Don't Teach You in School About Black History. And he brought the book to school, and the book never came back home. The teacher took the book away from him. And so home without the book, asked him, like, what happened to the book? And he told us the teacher took it. And so, we called the school and, what have you, and the teacher denied it and said he must have lost it and whatever the case was. But the book never came back home. And he was very upset. He said his teacher was upset with him and took it away from him. But then when we confronted the school, they said that he must have just lost it. But anyway, it just shows like how things need to change, and it's still not a part of the curriculum right now in our public schools and even in our private schools. It's not part of our educational system. And so that's, one of the things that I'm looking forward to, that I hope that I'm able to see in my lifetime to change, that, the facts of history, particularly here in America, are made part of the curriculum. Black history does not start with slavery. Many people will have you to believe that Black history started with slavery. Even here in America, it did not start with slavery. So, it's just important to me that the facts about Black history are taught on a broader scale in society.
Viviana, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
I grew up in East Elmhurst, Queens. I went to Jerome Hardeman Daycare, which is right on the Story Boulevard in East Elmhurst. And then I went to St. Gabriel's Catholic School from kindergarten through 8th grade. And then high school, I went to Thomas Edison High School. And then on to college, I went to Medgar Evers for a short period of time. And then I also went to the College of New Rochelle, is where I graduated from.
Did you experience prejudice during that period of time, like in your earlier years that you impacted you?
I didn't realize it was prejudice. So I went to a Catholic school. It was very, very diverse, and I was very, very grateful that my parents put me in private school so I was able to experience that type of diversity. And even in the community that we lived in, it was very diverse. In East Elmhurst, it was very diverse. I didn't realize that I was experiencing any type of racism until I was older and I looked back at my childhood. Some of the brothers in school, you know, some of the things that they would say and how they would, you know, try to make you feel about certain things, like about your hair, you know, about having braids in your hair and like, why won't you do something different with your hair? You know, so things like that never really paid attention to until I got older, that I realized that, you know, that was really inappropriate. That was, you know, that was not nice. As I tell my grandkids, like, that's not nice. That was not nice. And then my mother, being from the South, my mother was a very, very meek woman. She was sometimes uncomfortable being in the presence of white people because that culture from the South, you know, where you were taught to believe that Black people were inferior or subservient to white people, I saw it sometimes in her behavior when she was around white people. And so it was, you know, and again, not until I was older that I looked back and recognized those things and, you know, realized it was just a part of the way that she was brought up.
Wow. I'm going to have to cut Viviana off, but what I want to do is reschedule a couple of months from now, because it doesn't have to be Black History Month to discuss these things. I think it's very significant. So Viviana's going to come back in a couple of months and we can just talk about it. Versus,
yes, I would love that.
It's February, and I'm the first one that said, oh, it's February. We have to have Viviana on. We'll have Viviana on because she's a person a couple of months down the road. Viviana, I want to thank you so much. You've been listening to Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. This is Project Independence and You. Excuse me, I'm your host, John Ryan, and my co-host today is Otto.
That was a good segment, John. I love having good, open conversation.
I know you do, and you
subjects like that, you know.
And I agree with that. And you're a natural at it. That whole Jackie Robinson story of yours is tremendous.
Yeah, well, it was a big deal as a kid, that you can imagine, and it becomes a bigger deal as I get older and I look back and realize, you know, there are not a lot of people around that can say they met Jackie Robinson or sat next to Jackie. And, you know, he was a major influence on sports and in general, Black history.
He changed the lives of many people.
He did.
Now, we're in the beginning of the Kristina Lu show. Every week, we're going to be a little different. We're going to try to bring a person on, a highlight if it's possible, etc. But I want another highlight for today, which is going to be a little short one, but that's Kristina herself. Now, I know this is radio, and we have radio and TV. So I'm holding something up here right now, which is, people will see it when it's on TV. But what that is, it's an amethyst heart, which is purple. And the stone purple is the healing stone. And not a lot of people knew it, but Kristina did. And I was in the hospital last week for whatever. I had setbacks, and nevertheless, I was in the hospital. And yesterday I'm home and my wife brings this into me. And I said, what is this? She said, it was in the mail. So she opened it up and handed it to me. But just in my head, I'm saying, this is Kristina. Then a few minutes later, she comes back in with the note. And I didn't bring the note. I have the note home that it was Kristina wishing me well. And the amethyst, if I'm saying it correctly, is a purple stone, which is a stone for healing. And I'm just acknowledging it from the fact, and she's not looking for any acknowledgement, but this young woman is such a cut above the rest. And I'm not talking about being a producer and being on time and getting everything worked out for Otto and Dan and myself, which she does beautifully every week. I'm talking about Kristina, the person, She has a heart of gold. I love her dearly. And now the world knows I love Kristina. I mean, she's the best. And I want to thank you, honey.
No, I haven't had a lot of sleep, so I feel like the tears are starting. It's too early. We just got
I don't want to cry. I'm not interested in
crying.
I'm not interested in any crying. I just, sometimes there's people in your life that are just so wonderful. And nobody else knew about it. There's only a few people because you happened to check in and I told you what was going on. And that was the end of it. And so these little surprises are tremendous. And I just, wanted to acknowledge you.
Well, thank you. And you deserve it. And you're clearly someone in my life. So, that's my thing, right? Is that unfortunately I can't be with all the people that I love and care about right now. So, my way of staying connected and let them know that I'm thinking about them is sending a little, whether it's a little card or a little, thing like that. And like I said, John had been, going through a rough time. So, listen, I know how I feel. If I get something exciting in the mail that's not a bill, I mean, I'm real excited, a little card or even a catalog. Listen, I mean, it's really something that is just nice. So all we can do is just spread a little bit of joy during these tough times, and everyone's struggling. So I'm glad that it got to you before the show. Thank you
very much. Dan tried to say something, but I can't read what Dan said.
He said, yeah.
I know. I'm trying to.
Look, Dan's trying to butter me up too. He said he needs a whale with Kristina's. God, you guys, I wasn't ready for all this today,
Well, Kristina is a super example of what I believe a social worker's heart and mentality is all about. And I have a granddaughter who just became a social worker, as you know, and she has the same kind of empathy and way about her. And I made a comment on Facebook that social workers greatly contribute to improving the world and making it a much better place. And I believe that, I really do. I learned that as we marched along in life. Years ago, it was a different image to me. And it's so wrong, it's not even funny. Social workers are major contributors to good things in this world and should be recognized. And you are a superstar.
Oh, God, guys, I told you, we just started. But thank you. And Otto, you're very close because next March is Social Work Month. So that's next week. So you're just ahead of the game, Otto. You're just really ahead of the game. But thank you guys. And like I said, we got to spread positivity and joy the best that we can during especially, during these kind of times. So thank you. And shout out to you guys. Probably got to pull it together for the first half of the show. It was really wonderful. I mean, as everyone knows, if you follow the show, my plight of organizing has really been my thing during this whole pandemic. And I have to laugh because I just keep buying random, organizing things. I just bought like a little tea holder, for my tea bag. So I'm excited to put that together. I'll send you all a photo of that. Hopefully I'll be able to do that later. But, I love when Barbara Feldman is on giving her tips. And I want to encourage everyone, if you missed any of the tips, you could always call 311 or 869-6311. You'll come over to me and I'll be able to send you those tips because I think they're helpful. They're filled of our golden nuggets. We all could walk away with a whole list of things. And I think it was important to note too, that it's kind of a different journey for everyone, right? So it's a different journey because me and my husband will view two things very differently. What is garbage and what should be kept. So you really, and I think that was a great message that you guys got across is that.
Kristina, you mentioned the word listeners. Do you get calls every now and then at all about this show?
Well, thank you. And that's something that, of course, as you guys know, I love this show. This is my pride and joy and my baby, one of my favorite parts of all the things I do at North Hempstead. And I think it's filled with such great information, and I'm not being biased. I really do think it helps people, so when I get validation for that, which I have been getting a lot of now that we're on TV, which is really exciting. So, and I have to give a shout out to John because this is tied into his family. So we had on a couple of weeks back, one of John's son-in-laws, Matt Castillo, who is a sensei over at Tiger Schulman's in Huntington. And his segment, I encourage everyone, if you missed it, to go back to the WCWP website or YouTube or wherever you want to watch us. There's a whole list of different ways and to watch that video because it was so wonderful. And I walked away feeling, it was so inspirational. And he just shared stories of how he's helped different people. And I actually received a phone call from someone who was desperately trying to track him down, but was having difficulty because was Googling Costello. So I was like, wait, because they came, I feel like I'm part detective over at the town North Hempstead too, because Paula received the call and she's like, someone's calling 311 trying to get in touch with a Matt Costello. And I was like, wait a second. They saw my TV. So I'm like, oh, my wheels are turning. I'm like, hold on. I think it's Matt Castillo. So then I called the senior and I had a wonderful conversation with her. And, she wanted to reach out. There were some personal things going on with her daughter. And she was just very inspired by Matt. So it was just great to hear. And it was just great to, then I texted you guys. I spread the word. I texted Matt and let him know. And he's like, hey, you made my day by letting me know. I'm all about, you got to give it out to people. He clearly was inspirational, and it's nice for him to know that he's making a difference, because I think it makes you feel good when you get that validation, that you're really helping people out there. So it was just great. It was one of those feelings, and I was just like walking around like, yes, this was great. I just felt so, it was just warmed my heart, and all this craziness that goes on. It was just a great call to get.
So we're past 47 people watching
we are
the
just
show.
rolling, guys. Who knows?
We're into the 50s, Otto. We're into the
But
50s.
and this is what was great. This woman I talked to, obviously she was a senior, but her daughter wasn't, and she was watching North Hempstead TV with her. So I think that, that's what's so cool about this show. And I say this all the time, how it's kind of evolved. Yes, we deal with a lot of senior kind of issues, but it's really so much bigger than that. And everything that we talk about is beneficial to someone in the community or a caregiver, whatever it might be. So it was great. I was feeling good about myself, guys, when I got that call.
Good.
Also, the TV, Otto, is in my mind tremendous, because I run in a pretty big circle of people, and it's amazing. I'll get a text from somebody that I haven't talked to in 2 months. I saw you on TV last night. People watch it. It's an amazing thing that I would turn around and say, who's watching public access TV? But they are. Because, and especially after last week, when now I know how to go to my nhtv.com, you can just go to the time you want it. So it's tremendous what's gone on. So the pandemic has stunk for many, many people, but Kristina didn't give in. We went on the radio via Zoom, and she worked it out with Dan, which is a hassle for Dan, but has been more than willing to do it, and we're all appreciative of that. And then we wound up on TV, and it's great. So it just
it is, and it's I think about it all the time. I mean, I'm the queen. I'm constantly listening to radio shows or podcasts. I listen to that all the time, all day long. While I'm working, while I'm driving. I need like that stimulation when I'm cleaning the house. But I love when a radio show that I like or a podcast, has a visual component. So I think that it adds kind of a personal touch, to the interview. So by having it now on TV, I think is great, so it's exciting.
Great.
It really is. It's a nice thing to do. So thank you guys for that. And of course, I want to give a special thank you to Councilwoman Viviana Russell for, being on before, because she is just amazing. And there's so many great people in North Hempstead, so it's always a pleasure to showcase, and we'll definitely have to have her back.
John?
And we have had quite a show.
What I love, John, about the show? I'm sorry. I'm doing just what I tell people not to do, interrupting you.
No,
but,
go.
There's so many times you have conversations, but they're really not conversations. Somebody's talking at you, like in your own life. They're talking at you. You're really not having a conversation. And I believe for the most part here, we do have conversations as opposed to anybody talking at anybody. And to me, that's very enlightening, if you will. I love that.
And that's how you learn, but I mean, that's how I should say, that's how I learn best. I mean, we could be having a presentation, and that's when I laugh when I'm scheduling people for the show. Cause like, oh, do you want a specific question answer? I was like, I always start off with like, it's real conversational, because it's, and I think that it makes, some of these topics that we deal with are heavy or complex, and the fact that, having you guys talk it out, and it just makes it more understandable, these some of these issues and topics, which I think is important. So good job to you guys for being a wonderful host and starting that discussion.
I'll agree with Otto 100% there, because, and the one thing, Otto, where I will go, and I'm going to compliment Otto, is Otto does his homework, but he listens. So when the person's talking, you're listening to them, and then, as you would in a cocktail party,
Right.
say, tell me more about you. And you don't want to know I'm an engineer and whatever I'm doing. You want to know about the person, which comes out very often in your questions. And so it becomes a nice a conversation with family over dinner on a Sunday. Like, what are you up to today? And you tell me the story and we have fun.
Yeah, and with some people you can have a conversation, and with other people they may be really good friends, but it's a little more difficult to have a conversation. It's a little bit lopsided as far as the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next week, I want to tell everyone to make sure they tune in, because we're having on Jennifer Kona, who is on the chair of the Board of Trustees over at the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center. So she's going to come on and talk about how they have kind of adapted to providing services during the pandemic. So she'll be on, so that should be really wonderful.
I'm just going to jump. Yeah, Jennifer Kona also is the law firm where Marcus O'Toole works.
Yes.
And Marcus has been on as an estate planner, and he's a wonderful young man. Everybody's a baby to me, but he's a good guy, and he's been very helpful to clients of mine, etc. And this is the firm he works with. And then one day, I think it's wonderful that people get involved. Here's a woman who's very successful, but yet look, she's involved, giving back to the community.
Yeah, it's great. It's just a showcase, another great person in the community. So that's really exciting. And then just quickly, I just want to tell people what is also to come.
Yeah.
We have on Deborah Heiser, who's a PhD, who's done a bunch of different TED Talks. So she's going to be on, and she is going to discuss rethinking aging, overcoming age biases, and a passion for life. So I think that's going to be a really great segment. I'm excited for her. Then we're going to have on also in March, New York State Assemblywoman Gina Saletti will be on. We have on Dr. Deep Parekh, who is an ophthalmologist, who's going to talk about macular degeneration and just eye health in general, which I think is another complex kind of issue. And then April comes, and we have on Rebecca Miller, who's going to talk about her journey into mindfulness. And then we have Supervisor Judy Bosworth, very exciting, will be on, and she will do a little recap of the state of the town. We also are going to have on Greg Balbera, who is from Right at Home, Nassau, Suffolk, and he's going to talk about the top questions about geriatric mental health answered, because we know that's something that all of us have been talking a lot about now, so he'll discuss that. And then on April 23rd, we're going to have on Randy Height from the Nancy Marks Cancer Wellness Center over at the Sid Jacobson JCC, because they do amazing programs. I'm on their email list, and I see all these virtual programs that they've been doing during the pandemic. Is really just, it's wonderful. So, and then April 30th, we're going to end April with the Community Relations Director, Andrea Niederman, over at the Port Washington Public Library. They are such a great library who are doing all kinds of great stuff. And then we're also going to have on Carol O'Neill, who is the director of EAC, and she is going to talk about all the great programs. EAC does Meals on Wheels. They actually provide our social workers, and they do our respite program for caregivers. So Carol is wonderful, and she's been on the show before. So that is a lot. And I'm in May, so we'll be doing May. Hopefully May will be booked soon. So we are just flying through, guys.
I'm going to send you information for May if you have an interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know who wants to come back on again is Paul, who was the fishing book.
Oh, yes. He was great.
His fish tank. He has a website. His fish tank just 50. It's the oldest fish tank, saltwater fish tank in America. It turned 50. He started it when he was 20 or 21 years old. He just moved 2 years ago. That same tank has been with him, gone all over the place. He has his own coral growing in it.
Ooh.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so he was great. He was the one we'd love to have, because he was a great guest, because I remember we just talked about all kinds of different things when he was on the show. So it was definitely.
Yeah, and he was a vet in Vietnam.
Yeah, remember he was laughing because he didn't come on to talk about that, and then we kind of, that's what I always love, how organically things kind of go in different directions. So
Right.
That's a good topic if you think about it, is hobbies that people might have.
yeah,
Like I have a nephew who's goes out into places all the way on the East End and takes pictures of birds. And he's got some
Ooh.
spectacular photographs of birds, really.
That's so
I mean,
great.
and he goes out there and, I don't know how he sees them or whatever. And he must have a camera that can zoom in. But just the point being that it's a hobby that somebody gets pleasure out of. So
Yeah, absolutely.
maybe
And
we
it's
ought to
so
be putting
important.
out the feeler for
Yeah,
people
I
who
think
have
that's,
kind of unique
listen,
hobbies
we
that,
could ask all of our guests what is their hobby. Everyone's got their own, kind of thing. And my husband will say I have too many hobbies, and interests, but but I think, especially during this time, it's so important, and that's a great point, Otto, to have a little kind of hobby or something, to think about. I say that all the time, everyone's brain is stressed out and can go a million different directions. But if you do have a hobby, or an interest in something or collecting something, whatever it might be, I think is certainly something beneficial. So
I don't know, who is this person that you're talking about with the birds?
my nephew,
Okay.
who's
Uh,
60 some odd years old. He just retired. I'm getting older, John. I'm realizing all of a sudden I had somebody tell me, oh, he's 70. He's 70? I said, I knew him when he was a kid.
Listen, Otto, everyone's getting older, but Otto's staying the way
I'm
he
looking
is.
in the mirror
staying
and
the
I look
same.
the same. How did he get like that?
I hear you, but you know what? Age is just a number, Otto.
Exactly.
It's
I
all
believe me.
that
You
mentality.
have to believe that, whether you like it or not.
Right. You got to talk yourself into it. I agree with you.
I love it. But I also want to encourage people to take advantage of all the wonderful programs that North Hempstead Project Independence is providing virtually now. Hopefully we'll get to a place soon where we can kind of incorporate, in-person things. But for right now, we are virtual. And there's really great programs. There's all kinds of social groups. There's advisory committees. And I really recommend people to go to the advisory committees because there's usually a great speaker and it's a place to kind of discuss and learn about what's happening in the community.
There is one on Monday involving New Hyde Park and I believe Mineola, and I'm not sure what else, but virtual advisory meeting Monday, 11 a.m. If you want more details, I'm sure you could call.
Yeah, you just call 311.
311.
Absolutely. And you'll get the Zoom link and whatnot. And I just encourage people to, and listen, if you don't have the capability to, have a computer or, a smartphone, whatever it is, you can call into these meetings too. So we have tons of people that participate just via the telephone. So they don't have a video capability, but they are on the phone, and it kind of brings it to connection. And I have to say this week was so wonderful because I had sent out an update of, radio show stuff. And I heard back from a lot of our radio show committee family. So that was really, really nice. I just want to give a special shout out to all those people that reached out. I heard from Ann Hirsch. We talked for a while. I heard from David Linden. He is now a great grandfather.
Wow.
Him and Joan. So that was really nice to hear about. And I heard from Janet Entine, who was doing wonderful. So it was just really great to talk to them. And they were all saying what a great lineup it is. And it was just nice to stay connected. So it's important. So that was just my little shout out to all the radio show family members that we unfortunately don't get to see all the time. But of course, we're always thinking about them. And they're always giving me great topics. So
That's important. They're still involved. They just may not be with us. Because I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, that Otto had sent a very threatening letter to them all. You sent a very threatening letter to all the other co-hosts saying,
Yeah, right.
Don't rain on my parade. I'm coming here.
Actually, I do miss, like we used to have every once in a while a radio committee meeting where we would talk about topics and ideas and whatever.
Yeah. So listen, I was talking, Dan, we were saying maybe we can do some kind of virtual kind of, committee meeting and chat and see who can participate, because I think it would be, it's a great place to kind of, that's where I get, and I want to tell people that if you're watching the show, if you're listening to it, whatever it might be, and you know someone that's interesting, or you have a topic that you want to learn more about, whatever it might be, we've clearly had all different types of guests on this program. If you just call 311 or 869-6311, say you want to be connected to me, Kristina, they'll send it over to me, and I think it's the best. Some of the best guests that we have had on the show were recommendations from different people, and that's all. That's it. We want to make everyone feel a part of it. That's how we're a community radio show, so it's nice to do.
And if you call Kristina and think you have somebody who is interesting, and they prove not to be interesting, we'll call you back and say, don't ever call again.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to pass it along to Dan, and then Dan can call you and tell you, nope, they can't come on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. But I also want to tell people that we have a service which has been going really great. It's our volunteer, Barbara Melman, who will actually provide Zoom training over the phone. So if you really want to learn these things, just call her and she'll give you a quick run through of how to do it. So, oh my God, I can't believe we're like approaching the end of the show. How did this even happen?
Bottom line, Kristina just started to say it, call 311. You need anything in this town, the town of North Hempstead, you call 311. That's it for today. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. You've been listening to Senior Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Enjoy, and we'll be back next week.